What's up, you guys? Dalton here doing a quick video for you tonight. It is March 27th, Tuesday, 2018. Unfortunately, I have not been able to get out to the water lately just because we have storms rolling in. And due to my schedule, I've been a little bit busy, but I haven't forgotten about you guys. Um, One of the things that I've always been asked a lot to do is a topwater video, and I wanted to, without pulling out any gear, I wanted to do one-on-one with you guys. Um, this was sort of a spur of the moment thing, pulling out tackle. I mean, I don't mind doing it, but my kids are asleep, my girlfriend's asleep, so I didn't want to wake those guys up going out to the garage to get my one of my tackle boxes out. So I thought I'd just do this video for you guys and sort of wing it. So one of the big questions I get a lot is on the top water side, what's my go-to top water bait? Um, and is it a buzz bait? Is it a frog, uh, a spook of some kind? And the big answer to that is my two go-to baits generally are going to be some kind of popping bait, like a popping frog or a pop R, or a hollow body frog. So I generally use more of the popping frogs and hollow body frogs. Just ordered another set of them. The reason why I choose to use frogs is I have big confidence in them. I haven't caught too many fish with them, keep that in mind, but I have built confidence in them to know that the fish that I have caught with it's a lot of fun for me. So I typically throw frogs. Frogs you really can't go wrong with. My son, he's 4 and I'm considering take when he goes fishing again, putting a frog on his, uh, one of those paddle tail frogs, put that, ribbit, I think it's called ribbit tails or whatnot, put that on there and let him cast it out there and see what he can get his hands into. And the big thing that big reason why I like frogs so much is they're a versatile bait. They can go through grass real easy. If you're really doing thick vegetation, especially now, especially here in Texas, we're getting into spawn. The grass is going to start growing thicker and thicker. So, uh, there's going to be times where a punching rig, a jig, or anything that you generally would use to go straight through the grass isn't going to be able to get through because it gets that thick in certain areas. I've seen it firsthand. Um, so I typically recommend throwing frogs with thick vegetation. I throw the hollow bodies. So that's the one without the concave mouth. Um, so I just throw a regular hollow body in a situation like that. And the reason is even during spawn, the bass hide in these little grass areas and sit on their beds. And when they see something come over, they think they bite it out of a reaction. So bass feel things on their lateral lines, uh, and they act on instinct most of the time. So, or instinct or reaction. So it's it's really with frogs you hone in on that. So with a frog, I'll generally twitch it. I'm a big jerkbait guy, so I'll usually twitch it, let it settle, let the ripples settle, then I'll twitch it 2 more times, let it settle out a little bit, then do it 3 times or whatever the pattern may be until I'm out of the strike zone. Um, One of the big things with me on frogs, why I like frogs so much is Not only to me, if you're dealing with thick vegetation, everyone's like, well, throw a jig. Well, a jig works great. A jig works fine. Don't get me wrong. I throw jigs all day long. I'll put a flipping jig on there and flip into the thickest of mats. I'll flip into it. I mean, I have no problem doing it. I love doing it actually. But the big thing with me and what I've noticed is there's a lot of times where there's places I just can't get into with a jig. So I have to work the top portion of it and in an effort to try to get the bass's attention, and those frogs do that. Now the popping frog, I will use that in thick mats if we're talking windy days, because when the wind starts coming, it breaks that grass and mats and every other vegetation up pretty significantly to a point where you could get a jig in there, or you could work the top and make some noise with that concave mouth dispersing water. So that's the science behind that for me. My big thing on it is it's a reactionary bite. The bass don't have to be feeding on frogs. I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions. Well, the bass don't feed on frogs. It's not a natural forage for them, so they're not going to hit it. Not necessarily. You could come up there and twitch that frog, and the bass is going to look up at it and come investigate it just because it's something over him and he or she doesn't know what it is, and they're going to be like, what's that? And come up and you hit it again, boom, they're going to hit it out of a an instinctual reaction, I should say. That's the reason behind it. Line wise, I throw 50 to 65 pound braid on it. And you'll notice that's the same thing I'll use for a buzz bait as well when I throw buzz baits, but it's very rare I do that. Um, I will gear ratio. It's a 7 to 1. It's a 7 to 1 gear ratio. Abu Garcia and I have it on a. This is going to really be an oxymoron for a lot of you. It's on a Daiwa rod. Um, Daiwa reels are great, but I can't afford it. And I already had the setup, so I typically throw it. The Daiwa rods, I have nothing bad to say about it. They're really stiff, they're really heavy, really good for getting into the thickest of crap. I mean, there's a reason why Ish Monroe uses it, you know. If you don't know who he is, he's a professional fisherman who's sponsored by Daiwa. A big frog fisherman, has his own popping frog out there. Really good, really good with a frog. Um, so with that being said, condition wise, really, quite honestly, the only time I won't throw a frog is the winter. Um, I'll throw it in low light conditions. When we go into shad spawn, because I get these two confused, so forgive me on this. We have, if I remember right, we have a shad spawn right before the bass spawn, and the shad and this is coming from a biologist, a marine biologist. Shad generally spawn at night, is what he said. They're very nocturnal. They'll spawn at night. They'll come up at night in low light conditions. Cloudy, windy days, they stay up on the banks longer and spawn. Then they go back deep. Uh, Bluegill, they spawn right after bass, and I see or panfish, bluegill, panfish, sunfish, what have you. Um, I notice right after the bass spawn, like we're talking post spawn, like a week or two after everything is said and done, these bass um, will start feeding up for the summertime, for the dog days where they're just sitting there and suspended. They're lethargic, and you really can't get to. You really have a hard time getting them to bites, anything, even reactionary bites. So I noticed that they feed up on bluegill a lot. Summer and winter go hand in hand. The patterns are still the same. Spring and fall. Fall, I can catch them all day long. Fall, I'll catch them all day long because they're feeding up for winter. They know something's going to happen unless we have a warm winter. Uh, then they might not, like we've had in the past, and that was really interesting. Like winters in the 70s, and the water temp stayed pretty warm for these bass, and they weren't sure what to do about it. So, which wasn't a bad thing for us because I think that was a wasn't last year. I think it was the year like 2016. I think so. That typically covers that basis. So, anyways, so frogs are a big thing for me on top water. I know you've heard me talk about middle water depth with the lipless cranks and the chatters and the spinner baits. Uh, deep diving. You've heard me say, or middle water. Even I even throw jerk baits out there. I'm a big jerk bait guy now. I'm really turned on to jerk baits um, right now. You know, deep wise, I'll either flip or throw a football head jig and work it real slow in the summertime. I mean, really slow. Um, and that generally works for me. So with that being said, hopefully this video helps you out. God bless you guys. I hope you guys are staying safe. If you're in Texas, near in the northern part of Texas, stay safe. We got more storms coming in. I've heard they're going to be a lot worse. So God bless, guys. God bless you and your families. Uh, keep fishing, guys, and and good luck on the water, guys. Tight lines.